Ustedes a este que es el irlandés.
Oisin, I suppose, going back to the start, going over to the USA for soccer, and then going down a completely different path in the end. But I suppose just take us back and kind of take us to when you originally went over to the States.
Okay, yeah, well, I did everything unorthodox, that's for sure. Well, I played for Portmarnock in football, and we got into a junior cup final when I was about I suppose I was old. Well, I think it was 22. I played against Cherry Orchard in a junior cup final in Talca Park, and I had a pretty good game. And there was a couple of scouts at the game. One was a scout from America, and the other was a Leeds United scout. And the lead scout kind of just said that, "Oh, we'll keep you on the books," kind of thing. And I wasn't at the time. I was expecting loads from that, and I was really excited, more so about the Leeds thing than the American guy. But the American guy then said, "Would you come over for a kind of tryout, like a trial?" And I said, "Yeah." Says, "Okay." And my dad was a real stickler for me to get my education, because I got thrown out of school as a kid, and so I was a bit of a messer, to say the least. I was about 22 when I went to Chicago. That was my first time out of the country, like over stateside, and had a good game in the game that they put me in. It was only a small sided game, and the coach seemed really pleased with me, and he brought me into the office, and it was real kind of professional looking. It was my first real taste of this is kind of the big time kind of thing, And he says, "Oh, you made this play here, and you turned the guy here." And I was going to, like, he has all my stats, and I didn't even have my stats. I didn't know what was going on, And he's going, "Yeah, okay. So do I get a scholarship?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Yeah, but we definitely want to bring you over." I says, "Great." I says, "What's next?" He says, "Now the only thing about us here at Lewis University, was in Chicago, and that you would have to pay for their first semester, and then once your first semester was over, then everything else would be written off on your scholarship." I was going, "Okay, how much would I have to pay?" Like, he said, $5,000. I was going, So that was the end of that. It wasn't, but he saw how disappointed I was, and he said, "Listen, I'll keep your stats on the internet." And 2 years later, then somebody else came in for me from Oklahoma. So that was the way it worked there. And in Oklahoma, then it was I went over, and I asked him straight away, "I'm not gonna have to pay anything for this. There's a full scholarship, right?" He says, "Yeah." So that was me.
So your original purpose kind of took a complete 360 turn, and you went from scoring goals, I suppose, to scoring punches. How did that was kind of by fluke, I think, was it?
Yeah, it really was by fluke. Now, sometimes I'd hire some of the I'd say to the lads, "Does anybody want to do a bit of sparring?" And so I had my Jamaican friends sparring me, and Alcino was sparring me, and so was Ben Westerman. He was a guy from New Zealand, and we used to have some good old knocks. And Alcino said to me, he says, "You know what, Fagan?" He says, "I've got a professional boxer friend." And he says, "I think you're better than him." I was going, "Really?" Because I was just messing around, but that it always stuck on my head, that I knew that I was tough. I wouldn't have said that I had very much skills, particularly starting so late. I ended up graduating from college. I got my degree in PE, and I had concentrations in politics and journalism, and then I ended up falling real hard times. I lived in the back of a car for a little while. I wouldn't mind, but if I had told my mum and dad this, they would have just sent money over or got me sorted out. It was just but I was 30 years old at this stage. I mean, I couldn't be relying on mum and dad all the time. So I didn't tell them, but I was in the car for a little bit, and then sometimes I get in touch with some of my friends, and I'd stay in their places for a little bit, but then I didn't want to take the piss either, so I wouldn't even pretend that I was staying in the car for a bit. Anyway, all that just it took about a month to sort out, and a principal of the school, who I was going out with a girl at the time, and her uncle was a teacher in one of the schools, and nothing happened straight away, but I was getting quite desperate in the car then at the time. Didn't know what I was going to do. I just went down to a boxing club and I said, listen, what Alcino had said to me, that you were a good little boxer, I was going, maybe I'll get a few quid for fighting somebody. So I just went straight into the fella and I said, listen, can you get me money to fight? I don't care who I fight. I'll probably get beaten, but I'll fight whoever, you know. And he says, oh yeah, one of these kind of Don King kind of characters. No problem, I'll get you a fight. So I ended up going in against a guy called Sheldon Mosley, and he was a tall black dude, real long muscles, kind of looked like a Tommy Hearns kind of fighter, and he should have boxed the head off me, and he was for the first few rounds, but he couldn't understand why this mad Irishman just kept on coming for him, you know. And I ended up hitting him with a big, could have been a lucky shot, but I hit him over the top with a right hand, and I saw his legs buckle, and the referee came in and stopped the fight. So I got out of the ring and I was going, I just won my first professional fight. It was mad. And as I walked down to the dressing rooms, which was just there was actually a sheet around some seats. Just so I was like, yeah, that's how we got changed. Right? It wasn't very glamorous at all, no. And I met my ex-girlfriend's uncle, and he says, listen, I know you're a qualified school teacher, would you come in for an interview? Somebody just left in their notes. I go, like in the space of 20 minutes, like I was a teacher by day and a fighter by night.
And I suppose, you know, going into that first fight, like what sort of, you know, emotions and feelings were going through you? Because obviously there was a bit of excitement, there was thrill, there was fear, I suppose, you know, because you were going to be sort of semi-relying on this. So what kind of was the feeling going into it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was relying, I suppose I was relying on it, because, but my first purse was for $200, like, so
you couldn't really rely on that.
I think I was gonna, what I had in my mind was that, oh great, I'll be able to get a couple of nights in the hotel, right? So that was kind of the most of it. But the fear going into the ring, I had plenty of fear. Like I'm not afraid to say I was shit myself, like getting into that ring. I'd known Sheldon, the guy who was supposed to fight, because he was out of the same gym as me, and we used to do a bit of sparring, and I knew I could handle, like, it used to be a bit of to and fro, so I thought that it'd be a good fight, so I wasn't really afraid of getting beaten up, you know. I thought that'd be a good fight, and I stopped him in the 4th round, but he was beating me up until that, you know. So but yeah, all those kind of emotions of fear, and I was very, I was nervous, and in fact for probably my first 5 or 6 fights, I actually vomited before my fights, like that. I was like really, really nervous, like, and I only found this out maybe after 10 fights, but I was so stiff in there, and once you hold your, like, because you don't want to get hurt, you're really tensing up, and with that you can't throw quick punches because you're so tight, you know. And I didn't know this because I was just a brand new boxer, you know. And so I ended up learning on the job, I suppose, was the way I did it, you know.